Treasure hunters are considered the pinnacle of all professions in this world, where the strong dominate the weak. They specialize in searching for and exploring ruins and mysterious relics across the land. This job brings immense wealth and fame, but it also comes with the constant risk of death. The reason is that hunters frequently have to face monsters called phantoms. And our protagonist is a young man named Krai. Today, he attended an interview to recruit new members for the guild First Step, one of the most influential organizations in the kingdom of Zabruthia. This guild operates with multiple teams cooperating and supporting each other. In this profession, going it alone makes it very hard to get far. That's why most hunters want to join a truly strong team. Amidst the crowd waiting for interviews, a girl named Judah strikes up a conversation with Krai. She mentions she's reached level 3 and wants to join to have a chance to hunt relics. In the White Wolf's den, while they're chanting, a man named Greg butts in, looking down on her strength. According to him, in a top place like First Step, a level 3 hunter is nothing more than a grain of sand in the desert. Hearing that, Judah gets so angry she almost starts a fight with that annoying guy. Luckily, security staff intervene in time. Afterwards, Krai and Judah enter the conference room together. Judah is quite overwhelmed because this is her first time seeing so many hunters gathered. At the center table is the brave team, led by Roden. Though only 6 people, they're strong enough to conquer even level 7 relics. So this team is considered one of the strongest participating in this recruitment. Right next to their table is an empty one, making Judah curious about who it belongs to. Just then, Greg steps out and announces that it's the table for the Grieving Souls team, the founders of the First Step Guild. Krai knows this team better than anyone, because it consists of his childhood friends. Grieving Souls is made up of young men and women with superior strength, respected as the greatest hunter team in the capital. Their reputation is so huge that many solo hunters dream of one day joining this powerful team. Amidst the crowd, a red-haired young man named Jubert appears with an arrogant attitude. He loudly declares before the entire hall that he will become the strongest hunter. Though only level 4, he's extremely conceited and looks down on other hunters. His arrogance immediately rubs many people the wrong way, especially a female hunter named Tino. Tino coldly asserts that only she is worthy of joining Grieving Souls. Ignoring advice, she decides to teach the arrogant guy a memorable lesson. As the two are about to clash, the crowd gathers around, cheering non-stop. Only Krai feels something is off and advises Judah to leave this place with him. Meanwhile, Jubal ignites the flames on his greatsword while Tino draws her dagger, ready to stab him. Juba charges with a powerful slash, but at that moment, Tino suddenly spots a familiar face. She immediately drops the fight and rushes to stand in front of Krai. Gark steps forward, introducing Krai as the guild master of First Step and the leader of Grieving Souls. The entire hall is shocked, unable to believe the guild head looks so unassuming. Though Krai is recognized as level 8 and respected by many hunters, he always feels useless and untalented. Years ago, when Grieving Souls first arrived in the capital, they continuously achieved unprecedented feats, becoming treasure hunters, everyone's childhood dream except Krai's. He didn't possess the superior strength of his 5 companions, always feeling inferior standing next to such radiant geniuses. Many times Krai wanted to leave the team, but all 5 friends firmly refused. Instead, they even made him their leader. And so, Krai became the head of the strongest hunter team. Though deep down, he never truly believed he deserved it. Back in the present, he looks desperate listening to all the excessive flattery, especially Tina's devotion. She was Liz's student, Les being Krai's childhood friend. After that, she agreed to let Krai choose a new member for his team, but he kept causing trouble despite security's attempts to stop him. Instead of getting angry, Crowley was impressed by his recklessness. He pulled out a ring and announced that if Jupiter could get it, he'd be given a chance to join Brave. But as soon as he grabbed the ring, he took a powerful kick from Tino and went flying. The ring slipped from his hand and rolled away. In an instant, the hall fell into chaos as everyone scrambled and fought over it like a marketplace. Krai calmly returned to his base as if nothing had happened. The next day, the hall's destruction made front-page news. First Step's Vice Guild Master, Eva, said the Hunters Guild had summoned them for investigation. The Hunters Guild, or full name, the Hunter Management Association, oversees all hunters in the country. Not only that, they sent a direct message to Krai, demanding he report to headquarters. Krai was wary because Gark, the head of the Hunters Guild, is notoriously strict. Krai made an excuse that his disguise gear was broken so he couldn't go out. This gear allows the user to change appearance in an instant. But Eva immediately objected, saying no one would bother assassinating him anyway. So Krai had to go to the Hunters Guild to apologize directly to Gark. There, he bowed and begged for forgiveness, admitting he was the one who started the chaos. Gark agreed to forgive Krai only if his guild participated in a punishment game. This is the name hunters give to quests everyone avoids because their rewards are too low. For the high risk, cornered, Krai had to accept the quest. After some deliberation, he picked the lowest level 1, a level 3 rescue mission. Contrary to Krai's initial thoughts, this was actually an extremely difficult quest. Back at base, Krai was even more shocked that he had to go out. Tino then boasted that she had gotten the ring. Krai took the chance to hand over the Hundreds Guild quest to her. Hearing that, Tino ran off. She wasn't stupid enough to take a punishment game. Krai immediately activated his dog chain gear to drag Tino back to base. With no way out, she had to accept the quest. Annoyed, Krai realized the quest wasn't as easy as he thought. So he decided to form a team including Judah, Jubert, and Tino. Remembering years ago when First Step first registered at the Hundreds Guild, Krai hesitated about entering. Meanwhile, the red-haired Luke Sightbold boldly announced he was the world's strongest swordsman. Immediately after, Liz Smart also entered, calling herself the world's strongest thief. Their confidence gave Krai the courage to register the team's name and symbol. He saw it as a chance to pick a terrible name, hoping to make them quit and kick him out. At first, his 5 friends all criticized it harshly. But when he suggested leaving, they immediately changed their attitude. Surprisingly, that mocked name later became the top symbol associated with the whole group. Back in the present, Greg still couldn't believe the scholarly young man was First Step's leader. Krai was even honored with the nickname the Ever-Changing, an 8th-level super hunter. But Krai himself wasn't comfortable with that title. Juvert loudly criticized, insisting a wimp like him couldn't possibly be level 8. Tino immediately called Juvert a frog in a well, too weak to see the guild master's true power. Krai, tired, changed the subject back to the rescue mission. Jubert, still annoyed, firmly refused to join. On the other hand, Greg had started to believe Krai was truly strong, so he happily agreed to participate. This quest took place in the White Wolf's Den, so Judah also agreed to join. So, the temporary team had 3 members, just as Krai was about to leave. Jubert once again loudly challenged him. If he could win, he'd agree to join. Hearing that, Krai agreed, but the one fighting wasn't him, it was team leader Tino. The match between the two began immediately. Tino showed her usual confidence, even saying she didn't need a weapon. That offended Jubert, so he decided to throw away his Hellfire sword to fight barehanded. Watching from the sidelines, Krai thought the redhead was the dumbest person alive. Who abandons their sword as a swordsman? The match hadn't officially started, but the outcome was almost certain. As soon as it began, Tino threw a lightning-fast punch. Jubert dodged but immediately took a kick straight to the face. He tried to counter, but in an instant, Tino trapped his neck with her thick thighs. Jubert struggled, only to take a chop to the back of his head, knocking him out cold. In his pain, memories of the past flooded back. But unfortunately, he wasn't the protagonist, so memory power didn't work. Tino told Jubert to stand up and fight with his sword, but his pride made him refuse. Suddenly, Krai asked if he had left his old team because of the overwhelming gap in skill with his comrades. Krai said he understood that feeling because he'd been in a similar situation. But unlike him, Krai had never abandoned his teammates. Hearing that, Jubert was stunned, a chill running down his spine. If the members of Grieving Souls were already that strong, how powerful was Krai? At that point, Krai decided to show off a little to make the young man submit. He placed his hand on the Hellfire sword and immediately, flames erupted violently, scorching the surrounding space. Jubal couldn't believe Krai could control flames so easily. Witnessing such absolute power, Jubal bowed his head and agreed to join. Mana material is the fundamental substance forming the core of the world. It's an invisible flow spreading everywhere, also the origin of relics that hold immense power. The White Wolf's Den is one such relic, the home of the Silver Moon werewolves. Eva was worried when Krai gave the 4 of them such a difficult quest. But only now did Krai reveal that his method of igniting the Hellfire sword was using a special relic. He admitted he wasn't exceptionally skilled but possessed countless tricks. He always prepared many relics to handle any difficult situation. They were useful, but after use, they needed to be recharged with mana. And the recharging task, of course, was left to his subordinates. Krai couldn't do it himself. While waiting, he heard about the terrifying power of the phantoms in the White Wolf's Den. Krai was clueless about all of it. He didn't even know that Rodin's level 5 team had recently been reported missing. Krai realized he had given Tino's team a quest far beyond their capabilities, practically sending them to their deaths. So he decided he had to risk himself to save the 4 of them. Meanwhile, Tino's group was entering the deep forest to approach the White Wolf's Den. Before that, they had even written their wills, knowing the danger. Still, Tino absolutely trusted the guild master's risky decision, thinking it was a test. She had no idea the guy just assigned it randomly. That night, they were welcomed by a giant, ferocious red wolf. Meanwhile, Krai was frantically searching his secret relic room for anything useful. After a while, he decided to haul out a bag like he was moving house. Eva was surprised he was even bringing the slime Sitri Smart had made. Krai made an excuse that he'd grabbed it by mistake. Who would take such a dangerous thing out? Then Krai used a flying cloak relic to rush to Tina's location. Eva worried because that thing had no brakes and was uncontrollable. Tino swung her sword, cutting the wolf in half. Jubert said his Hellfire sword was out of mana so he couldn't use flames. Meanwhile, Judah was worried and suggested retreating. Tino firmly refused. They hadn't faced the challenge yet. Not to mention, this was a quest Krai had entrusted to her. Tino boosted everyone's morale and they pushed forward. At the cave entrance, dozens of giant red wolves stood guard. Juvert offered to charge in and open a bloody path. Tino refused. As team leader, she would bring everyone back alive. Tino and Judah would lure the enemy while the other two would fight from behind. With perfect coordination, they sent all the wolves to the afterlife. Jubert watched, remembering when he had abandoned his teammates, thinking they were burdens. Only now did he realize the value of teamwork. The group advanced deeper. This time, an enormous boss awaited them. Tino rallied everyone, realizing perhaps they all had psychological issues. That was why Krai had given them this challenge. Meanwhile, Krai was flying wildly through the sky. He had no idea how to stop it. He ended up crashing straight into the cave. As for the White Wolf boss, its strikes were devastating. However, it had a weakness. Its head wasn't armored. Tino saw this as her chance to finish it. The wolf switched its attack to Jubert, pressuring him. Greg bravely came to help, but took a hit and fell back. It swung its axe at Greg, but Jude arrived in time to save him. Tino countered, moving swiftly, reaching the wolf's head in an instant. She flipped in the air and stabbed it hard in the nape, successfully taking it down. Then she flipped out a recovery potion to heal herself. But their joy was short-lived. More wolves arrived. This time 4 of them. They thought they'd dealt with the boss. Turns out that was just the warm-up. Now Tino had no strength left to fight, so she suggested they run. But immediately a wolf blocked their escape. Greg and Jubert offered to sacrifice themselves to give the girls a chance to flee. They needed to act fast, as this was the best option. Just then, Tino remembered Krai, giving her renewed fighting spirit. Then everyone charged in, following Tino's orders. Judah threw her dagger at the wolf's face to distract it. Tino took the chance to fire an energy blast from her ring. The wolf was temporarily blinded. Jubert ran to attack but was kicked away. Just as they were in danger, Krai arrived. At first, the wolves trembled at the sight of him, but quickly regained composure and slashed at him. The weight of the blow was stopped by the relic shield. Krai unleashed an energy storm attack with massive shockwaves. However, its damage was only enough to knock the wolves down, not harm them. Outwardly calm, inside Krai was panicking. How could the enemy be this strong? Cornered, Krai decided to use citric slime. He threw the jar and detonated it, creating a thick smoke screen that confused the wolves. The group immediately bolted into a safe tunnel. Tino was full of admiration for Krai when she was little. Grieving souls had rescued her from bad people. Since then, she saw Krai as a truly amazing person. To her, he was like a god with absolute power and wisdom, reaching safety. Tino apologized for not completing the mission. Judah defended her, saying thanks to her they were still alive. Krai understood and praised her for trying her best. The group then ventured deeper into the cave, guided by Krai, but even he was lost, not knowing where he was leading them. This deep cave was like a labyrinth challenging them. Krai's goal was to find a way out, but the more they walked, the more lost they got. Tino thought the guildmaster was leading them somewhere else. According to her analysis, the only way out was to go back to the giant wolves. Krai was completely bewildered. Who would be stupid enough to go back there? So they kept moving forward. Krai made an excuse that this trip was for training. Coincidentally, Krai accidentally led the group to where Rodin's Keen was hiding. Krai was clueless about how he got so lucky. Tino still fantasized that this was the guildmaster's plan all along. They quickly went to help the victims. Krai humbly refused credit. And truly, the guy had no idea what he was doing. His attitude only made everyone admire him more. Judah then gave everyone healing potions while Krai handled food. He had a magical bag containing lots of delicious food. Thanks to the bread and sausages from the guildmaster, everyone ate a hearty meal. With full bellies, their fighting spirits rose. Rodin said this enemy was terrifying. It was a phantom wearing a skull mask, rumored to be the curse of the silver moon haunting this relic. Even level 5 hunters like him had no chance. Krai started thinking of a way out. He said he had appointed Tino as leader so she would continue leading everyone in this quest. Tino immediately bowed, accepting orders, and led the group gradually out of the cave. That also meant they were about to face the monsters. Krai was extremely worried. He only had 5 protective rings left, not enough to hold off the enemy. Just as they were stuck, the Phantom approached, throwing the group into panic. But who would have guessed that behind it was Lee Smart, Krai's childhood friend? She moved at lightning speed, kicking the monster face first into a wall. Everyone was stunned, witnessing such terrifying power for the first time. With Krai, Liz was sweet and friendly. With others, she was like a mad demoness. Liz was loud and harsh with anyone. The one most afraid of Liz was Tino, knowing she disappointed her master. Juber tried to speak up for the girl but got kicked into a wall. Liz continued questioning Tino about her weakness. Tino knelt, begging for forgiveness, letting Liz scold her freely. Liz went crazy, berating Tino with the harshest word. Krai calmly defended Tino, praising her efforts, asking Liz to forgive her student. Hearing that, Liz softened a bit but still said she'd deal with Tino later. While the group was in disarray, the wolves returned for revenge. They were more bloodthirsty than before. This triggered Liz's crazed nature. She put on her mask, activating her strongest combat instincts. The wolves fired volleys of 6-barreled rounds at her. Liz moved at supersonic speed, so fast she could see the bullets and catch them barehanded. Not a single shot touched her. Her heavy footsteps created shockwaves, but instead of fighting the enemy, she chose to yell at Tino again. With such a precious weapon, you couldn't even fight? Just go die. After venting, she finally turned back to fight. Liz leaped high, kicking a wolf in half. Another with a sword charged, but Liz blocked it with her bare hands. She then kicked it into the air and punched its head with immense force, knocking it out. Still unsatisfied, she threw hundreds more punches to pulp it. She didn't forget to curse her useless student. Hearing the harsh words, Tino burst into tears. Krai sympathized with Tino because he understood, except for him. The members of Grieving Souls had worked incredibly hard to achieve their current status. So to Liz, Tino's effort still wasn't enough. After the beating, Liz calmed down. Krai stepped over to congratulate her on the victory after the mission. Young Juverd decided to give his sword to Krai, saying he would start over with his old friends. Juverd hoped to one day possess terrifying speed like Liz, remembering a year ago. Sitri Smart personally gave Krai her slime jar. She was a brilliant alchemist. With her superior intellect, Sitri was considered the brain of Grieving Souls. She warned that the slime was a weapon with massive destructive power. If mishandled, it could burn down the capital. In the previous mission, Krai accidentally broke the slime jar. Despite searching, he found nothing. Thinking carefully, Krai remembered when he opened it, it was empty. This meant the slime Sitri had entrusted had been lost earlier. What he thought was the slime was just a similar jar. The more he thought, the more uneasy he felt, losing appetite and sleep. He became so depressed he had no motivation to work. Eva suggested Crowley go to the Hunters Guild to report the White Wolf's Den incident. He immediately passed the buck. Since Tino was the team leader, she should go. Eva said Tino was busy training with Liz, so she couldn't. Krai decided to see how Tino's training was going. At the training room, Krai met Sven, leader of the Black Iron Cross. A team under First Step, Sven said the situation inside was critical. If Krai didn't intervene, Tino's life might be in danger. Krai thought he was exaggerating, but things were exactly as Sven said. Tino was being beaten mercilessly by Liz. Still, it wasn't enough for Liz. Her face was cold and terrifying. Liz ordered her student to get up. If she avoided training, she'd regret it. Liz raised her leg to strike, but Krai spoke up, telling her to calm down. Thanks to that, Liz stopped her brutal actions. Yet Tino grabbed her master's leg, struggling to prove she could still move. Krai was surprised Tino was wearing the Grieving Souls mask. If her fighting spirit was that high, Liz would continue. Krai panicked and ran outside, letting them fight. Oh well, let it be. Tino getting stronger was good for everyone. Sven then informed Krai about the recent chaos. For some reason, many phantoms were appearing, causing many hundred deaths. Krai remembered Gark. With so many important matters, where had he gone? Krai had a clever idea, suggest the Black Iron Cross take on the Hunters Guild quest for him. One of Sven's subordinates questioned Krai's behavior, wondering why he just sat around while delegating all work. Sven explained this was the guild's long-standing method and not to be fooled by Krai's appearance. He was a real monster inside. Meanwhile, Gark had many questions about the White Wolf's Den. The area's ley lines showed no change. Mana material also showed no change. So he didn't understand why there was an anomaly in the relic. Gark wanted answers, but Krai made excuses for not attending. He felt someone must be pulling strings behind this elsewhere. A group called the Akasa Magic Tower was carrying out a mysterious plan. Their leader was the Great Master Magus, worshipped by his subordinates as their master. He said this device could interfere with the massive energy flow underground, and store power capable of altering relics. If the research succeeded, he could even create his own relics. The Master Magus's right hand was a maiden named Sofia, currently out on a mission. He believed that after Sofia returned, they would surely succeed. Meanwhile, Krai was awakened by a nightmare. In it, he saw the slime burning down the capital. Waking up, he was surprised to find Liz lying next to him. She invited him out to play, skipping Tino's training for the day. Krai felt uneasy but had to accept. Later, Gark personally came to First Step's headquarters to see Krai. Liz saw him and immediately caused trouble, saying Krai was busy today. Gark was angry that Liz had abandoned a mission midway without reporting. The two started yelling. Liz's hot temper flared again and she kicked Gark in the face without hesitation. Gark tried to hold back but Liz kept pushing, so he had no choice but to fight. And so they dragged themselves into an unnecessary battle. Krai saw this and invited the secretary Chloe to his room to talk while the other two fought. He said he found nothing unusual in the White Wolf's den. He also absolutely wouldn't report the lost slime jar. Deep down, Krai just wanted Gark to leave so he could wash his hands of everything. What could a useless guy like him do anyway? Gark and Lisa's sparring match destroyed the building. Gark punched the floor to pieces and Liz flipped onto his shoulders, teasing him. Gark flexed his muscles, ready to unleash full power. The force of each blow was devastating. The guild building was now just a toy for them to smash. Krai loudly demanded they stop. Seeing Krai step in, Liz dropped the fight and hugged him. Gark had to accept a temporary ceasefire. Liz and Krai then went for a walk. She complained that Gark was weaker now, not as strong as before. She said the other Grieving Souls members were still on a quest in the Palette, taking time because the phantoms there were all level 8. Chatting happily, Liz suddenly left to restrain a man following them. Crawley rushed to ask if he was okay, but the man used the chance to escape. Liz thought Crawley had decided to spare him, so she hugged him, praising his kindness. Back at his base, the terrified follower didn't understand why Crawley let him go. Could it be a warning? The next day, Sven met Gark to accept the quest. Gark was furious that Krai was again passing responsibility to his subordinate. Annoying as it was, Sven was trustworthy. Gark sent them into the White Wolf's den to investigate. While the subordinates were fighting for their lives, the guildmaster was out with a girl. Actually, Krai had responsibilities too. While hanging out with Liz, he was also surveying the criminal-heavy areas of the capital. Coincidentally, a new ice cream shop had opened nearby, so he and Liz decided to try it. The follower was nervous seeing Krai, and Liz approached his base disguised as an ice cream shop. He suspected Krai sparing him was a trap to find their hideout. He was frustrated that this newly established place was already discovered. Krai's calculating mind was terrifying. Just then, Sofia returned and calmed him down. Meanwhile, Liz was knocking loudly outside, about to break the door down, but Krai stopped her, saying he didn't want to disturb the shop owner. So they went back to headquarters empty-handed. Krai felt uneasy, wondering when Sitri would return. Eva informed Krai about Sven's mission progress. His team had gone ahead to clear the path, and tomorrow an investigation team of relic experts would arrive. She also listed the hundreds escorting them. Elsewhere, Magus' subordinates were worried. They thought disguising as an ice cream shop would fool people, but Krai almost walked in. They couldn't imagine what was going on in his head. Some subordinates were tougher. Sofia suggested they fight. She was confident because they were testing a special defense system, and a high-level hunter like Krai was the perfect test subject. Magus agreed. If discovered, they had no choice but to fight. Sofia was even more confident since only Krai and Liz were currently at Grieving Souls, at most. Sitri was furred, so she boldly declared she would crush the Alchemist Sitri at all costs. She also revealed that Sitri definitely knew about Magus' research. The master was pleased with Sofia's attitude, so he gave her command over the underlings. Felix felt uncomfortable with this decision, but for his master's noble mission he would accept. At First Step headquarters, many hunters gathered to prepare for the White Wolf's Den exploration quest. Krai was surprised Eva had sent so many people. According to her analysis, the White Wolf's Den was not to be underestimated, so they needed numbers to compensate. Krai thought so many people would cost too much, so he suggested cutting back to only the elite. This news panicked everyone. A difficult quest, and he wanted fewer people. Eva said the Hunters Guild had funded it, so Krai had no excuse. He felt uneasy. If anything went wrong, he blamed Gark, thinking it was over. Liz spoke up. In front of everyone, she declared that numbers were useless and would just get in the way. A strong person like her was enough to complete the mission. Krai still decided to let everyone participate. Then they discussed choosing a leader. A powerful hunter like Krai was the obvious choice. Krai wasn't stupid enough to agree, so he made an excuse to join later, handing leadership to Black Iron Crossy. Meanwhile, Sven's team went deep into the White Wolf's den. Suddenly, he received a report of anomalies. Sven ordered his subordinates to blow the whistle, signaling everyone to leave the cave. A team of hotheads was annoyed with Sven. They hadn't found anything, yet he ordered everyone out. Sven said they should be grateful his team was leading. If it were grieving souls, they wouldn't bother whistling when there was danger, as they never cared about the weak. Sven's strategy was slow and steady, with 0 casualties. If danger was reported, they'd retreat to safety and wait for backup. Sven then told a story about Krai. One day, Krai told everyone to leave the city to see a flower field. It was as if he could predict the future. When they arrived, the flowers had transformed into a relic. It was the first time they'd witnessed such a mysterious transformation. Since then, Sven always trusted Krai's judgments. Any information he gave deserved attention while the subordinates worked. The guild master just sat and pondered. Liz was restless, demanding to join the quest. Fighting with all her might in front of Krai excited her. Krai ignored her, just wanting to stall as long as possible, hoping everything would be done before he had to go. Suddenly, Sitri returned, having a bad feeling. She said the slime was just a prototype, but it had been improved in evolution, speed, and environmental adaptability. She assured Krai she had adjusted it so it wouldn't attack them. Then Sitri analyzed how the slime escaped. Being moisture-loving, it probably escaped through the drainage system. Krai was stunned so the slime could roam freely. Meanwhile, at the White Wolf's den entrance, Sven led the exploration team. He asked if anyone had experience fighting slimes. In the crowd, few truly understood slimes, but most were overconfident. Even bragging their power could beat them. To most, slimes were harmless. But Siri's slime was clearly different, so they had reason to worry. The hawkshot Gen loudly declared he wasn't afraid of slimes. Sven coldly warned him to know his limits. He'd regret it if he became the first casualty. Gen raged, accusing everyone of being cowards. Among them, a female alchemist named Talia raised her hand. She introduced herself as a lab assistant working with Sitri in the guild. Together, they'd studied the slime's abilities. She took out a jar, saying it was slime killer potion created by Sitri, effective up to 99%. Sven then briefed everyone on the battle plan. Upon entering, if they found anything abnormal, they'd whistle to warn others. Non-combatants would handle logistics and absolute caution was required. Sven's motivational words boosted morale and they confidently advanced at the Akasa base. Master Magus received words from Sofia that she was ready. Intel said the expedition team at the White Wolf's Den had only 2 notable hunters, and about 100 rookies. With that force, they'd be easily defeated. By evening, Sven met with key members about the situation. So far, they'd found nothing important besides phantoms. Fighting them was exhausting and many wounded needed medical care. Just then, Gen caused trouble. He said if not for Krai's excessive orders, the mission would be done. He resented the guildmaster for not coming to lead, instead giving vague warnings about slimes, uncertain if they'd appear. Sven couldn't persuade him to trust the plan. Furious, Gen went out alone. He called Black Iron Cross cowards, refusing to believe someone sitting at home could predict field events. Suddenly he heard a loud noise and found the Akasa group led by Philip. Philip was annoyed with Sofia for being favored by their master. Gen charged, kicking Philip away. The Dark Mage retaliated with fireballs, but Gen was unharmed. Philip got punched badly. Another took advantage of Gen's destruction to inject a special solution into a giant wolf. In seconds it transformed into a strange liquid. Philip said this was a phantom forcibly converted, craving high concentration mana material. The noise alerted the expedition. They rushed out to fight. Gen ran back to report, confirming Krai's warning the slime had appeared. Sven aimed at the enemy while Majors attacked, but the damage wasn't enough. Hansi quickly treated Gen, who now believed Krai's warning. Sven's arrows were ineffective. They kept their distance, attacking to stall. Sven ran to Talia for another potion. He bravely drew the monster's attention. It jumped, and Sven planted the potion where it landed. The creature exploded but didn't disappear. Sven was furious. This wasn't a slime, just slime shaped. In the nick of time, Sitri arrived to assist. She said the monster was covered in a powerful magic barrier. Before, Krai had agreed for her to come help. Sitri assessed the situation. The mana material forming the phantom was being forcibly converted to magic. She confidently approached the monster, throwing an anti-mana flask. Sven shot it, releasing the liquid, causing the monster to vanish. Gark appeared in his fancy armor, saying he and Sitri had rushed here at the Akasa base. Master Magus received news of failure. Indeed, Sitri was a formidable foe. Later, Sitri and the others held a meeting to report the situation. She announced Magus was the real threat, pulling the strings. She had been working alone to hunt him. The relic's anomalies were byproducts of his experiments. Talia suspected the enemy had prepared modern equipment underground. Sitri agreed. She said she would interrogate the majors Jen had captured. She expressed worry. She'd run out of anti-mana and more monsters might come. But that didn't mean surrender. She was confident she could lead them to victory. Her determination impressed everyone, even though she wasn't a fighter. Sven warned not to be fooled by her looks. She was just like other Grieving Souls members. Real monsters on the battlefield. Manual at first step. Liz was going crazy because Krai wouldn't let her fight, no matter how much she begged. At the Akasa Tower, opinions were divided. Sofia had ordered the release of converted phantoms one by one. Philip was furious at this incomprehensible decision. He demanded Sofia come to him, but she was inspecting the defense system. Philip mocked her incompetence. His subordinates urged calm. After all, the master had given her command. Still, Philip ordered them to release all captured phantoms at once. Arrogantly, he thought a mass attack would bring him great glory. The expedition team discussed the Akasa plot. Sitri knew the two majors were from Akasa and offered a deal, confessed the base's location, and she'd spare their lives. They refused. Sitri praised their spirit, truly Naka's Clear's disciples. She had long investigated their organization's background. Unable to extract info, she used a special potion she'd made. Some Hunters Guild leaders worried it might be harmful. Sitri coldly said her action was for justice, so bending morals a little was fine. Gark disagreed, reminding her they followed the law. Sitri said she was just bluffing, then drank it herself. Perfectly fine. Suddenly loud roars came from outside. Everyone rushed out to see countless converted phantom wolves. Sitri explained their traits. They carried a magic barrier, so to defeat them they needed to identify its type. She ordered hunters with shields to confront them. The field bearer followed instructions. Then she had majors use fire to block. Observing, Sitri determined the barrier's spin was clockwise, pushing away close-range physical attacks. To penetrate, they needed to concentrate fire on one point. But they lacked the necessary firepower. Sitri figured they could hold out for an hour at most. Before one was dealt with, more monsters arrived. Gark suggested retreating to preserve forces. Sitri agreed and told everyone to leave calmly. Surprisingly, the phantoms turned on each other. Sitri explained their instinct was attracted to high mana material sources, and on this battlefield, they themselves had the most. So the monsters would eliminate each other without the hunters lifting a finger. Watching, Thalia wondered why the Akasa group didn't just send them one by one. This heavy defeat infuriated Magus. He blamed the underlings for ignoring Sofia's orders. Sofia mocked Philip's incompetence. But now wasn't the time for infighting. She reported the front was worsening, with Sitri and Gark personally fighting. She warned Gark's power wasn't to be underestimated. Still, she opposed retreating. as it would damage their master's reputation, and the Hunters Guild held 2 of their men. Philip said those 2 would never betray them. Sofia agreed, but even without confessions, Sitri had her own ways to find them. So from now on, it was a total war. Her plan was to use the Malice Eater to overwhelm them. If they could wipe out everyone at this base, they'd have nothing to worry about. Easy to say, but Magus was hesitant. The Malice Eater was still in training. To fight, it needed a commander. Sofia suggested Philip for the role as a chance to redeem himself. Philip accepted eagerly. Talia remembered her school days, learning many useful things from Sitri. Sitri was a rare alchemical genius, not only talented but also hardworking. Talia admired her but also felt some envy. Sven approached Talia, wondering why the 2 majors kept staring at her. Talia said she didn't know either. Meanwhile, Gark talked to Sitri about his concerns. He said fighting Akasa with their current forces was too dangerous and suggested retreat. Sitri had other thoughts. She gathered everyone to present her battle plan. She announced she'd found the enemy's base based on monomaterial emissions, likely somewhere near the cliff. The 2 majors were shocked by her analytical skills. They panicked and denied it. Their reaction confirmed her deduction 100%. With the chance to finish the enemy, they decided to end it here. Suddenly, the majors mentioned Sofia, asking her to untie them. Sitri introduced Sofia, a talented disciple of Noctis and her archenemy. Despite her efforts, she'd never caught her. But this time, she was confident, declaring she'd put Sofia in prison elsewhere. Krai's group was heading to join Sitri. Liz clung to him, jealous when Tino tried to hold his hand. Sitri led the group to the enemy base. Suddenly, deadly lightning bolts rained down. Philip, riding the Malice Eater, had attacked. 1 blow took down most hunters. Philip boasted he'd send them all to heaven. But his joy was short-lived as Sitri calmly stepped out, unscathed. Philip was shocked. Sitri said he was overconfident. That attack was just an appetizer compared to what she'd faced. She pulled out a water gun with healing potion and shot it at the wounded Sven in an instant. He was fighting with devastating power. Malice Eater blocked the slash and Sven fell. Just as it charged, Gark arrived to assist. 1 blow and he'd finished the monster. Sidra continued using her healing potion on the wounded. Philip's failure made Magus restless. His subordinates urged him to escape, saying they'd sacrifice themselves with the remaining Malice Eaters to clear a path. Magus calmly assessed they didn't need to leave yet. They still had an ace. He ordered everyone to prepare a counterattack. Sitri and the others arrived at the Akasa base cave entrance. Gark said with just the 3 of them they'd handle all the enemies. Magus's ultimate weapon was a giant golem. It swung a sword that Gark, from above. Enemies on Malice Eaters rained arrows, then was suddenly scratched by a diving monster. The battle was chaotic. Just then Liz arrived, kicking a Malice Eater out. With Liz joining, only Tino was left to protect Krai. Earlier, the underlings had escaped during the chaos and ran into Krai and Tino. But contrary to their fears, Krai just walked past them. His cluelessness scared the enemy to death. Liz's presence shifted the balance. After clearing the minions, she attacked the golem. Gark added an axe, freezing it. Spence shot magic arrows at it. But the golem was tough, immune to all attacks. It jumped and shot a laser at Liz, forcing her back. Sitri analyzed that Liz's power alone couldn't beat it. The best option was to stall until it ran out of energy. Liz went berserk, pounding it relentlessly. Gark added an axe to its leg joint, but it wouldn't fall. Just then Krai and Tino arrived. His presence drew everyone's attention. Liz sadly admitted the enemy was too tough, disappointed she couldn't finish it before he got there. The golem then attacked Krai. Strangely, as it flew toward him, it was suddenly pushed far back. Everything happened so fast that before anyone could understand, the golem was swiftly defeated. As usual, Krai got the credit even though he done nothing. The hunters then entered the Akasa base, only to find everyone had already fled. But at least they recovered equipment and documents. Gark wondered what Sitri had done to take down the golem so fast. But according to the young man, it just flew away on its own. Meanwhile, Krai discussed things with Sitri, offering to help deal with these people, but she wanted to handle them herself. Magus was informed that Sofia was secretly infiltrated in the Hunters Guild, and they were sure the red-haired Talia was Sofia. Magus felt a chill after so many encounters with Krai. Things always turned out badly. The best course was to pause the plan and lie low. At the Hunters Guild, leaders questioned Krai about his extraordinary feat, wanting to know how he defeated the golem so quickly. Knowing they wouldn't believe the truth, Krai said to ask Sitri. He delegated this matter to her. Mentioning Sitri reminded them of an incident 3 years ago. They'd gathered enough evidence to prove Sitri had the nickname Deep Black. She was the mastermind behind a dangerous prison break. She should have been dealt with, but Gark's intervention cleared her. Meanwhile, Megan's underlings successfully kidnapped Talia. Megan said she didn't need to act anymore. They'd leave the capital together. Talia didn't understand what they were talking about. She insisted she wasn't Sofia. A malice eater growled at her. Now they believed she wasn't Sofia. Just then, the real Sofia returned to the base. She was calm, seeing a look-alike. She explained why she looked like Talia. She had chosen this person as a model for her disguise, saying that she removed her wig. It turned out Sofia had been Sitri in disguise all along. Everyone was shocked, not imagining they'd been fooled from the start. She calmly explained everything, admiring Megan's intellect and tireless curiosity. The base had expensive research equipment and rare materials, a valuable resource for her inventions. But all good things must end. She mentioned Krai's constant warnings to stay away. According to Sitri, Krai had sharp eyes, seeing everything without her saying a word. She was glad Krai's arrangements allowed her weapons to be tested through the Hunters Guild battle. Of course, she was the one who took down the golem. Sitri declared she had achieved all her initial goals. All experiments were confiscated, and they had become criminals. Magus was furious, not expecting she'd go this far for research. Now he understood why Sitri was the mastermind behind the prison break. She stepped before Talia, sincerely apologizing, making her cry in fear. Sitri then said the name Sofia would become past. From now on, Megan would be known as Deep Black. Philip angrily tried to attack Sitri, but she simply called her Malice Eater, making him tremble. Megan raised his staff for a powerful fire blast. The Malice Eater shielded her, leaving her unharmed. Then she introduced her citrus slime research, which eats mana material to grow. Magus warned it was a dangerous weapon. Sitri knew this well and wanted to test its effectiveness by having it attack them. A mist covered the base. In panic, Philip still tried to protect his master. Magus ran ahead, leaving his underlings to fight Sitri. He dashed out the door and collided with a tall figure, knocking him down the stairs, bleeding. Magus threw fireballs, but the figure stripped off a disguise, revealing a muscular body. Sitri said she'd use any means to become stronger. Making golems took too much time and money, so she tried making a chimera instead. She revealed she'd use the escaped prisoners as material for the new weapon. Then she commanded her creation to end it all. The next day, Krai received news about the Akasa Tower organization. Everyone had been arrested, but strangely, their memories were gone. Sitri, a person of great ambition, happily pinned all her crimes on others. Talia, caught in the crossfire, also lost her memory. Magus took the blame for Deep Black also. Sitri successfully convinced Krai to give her to recovered spoils, the Golem and the Malice Eater. Today, the leaders continued discussing how to handle the confiscated spoils. Krai requested to keep the Golem and Malice Eater, although he personally asked. He only got the Malice Eater for Sitri. Still, she was happy and thanked him for speaking up. Gark then came to introduce a rising level 7 hunter. His name was Nanha from the Mist Empire Nephilim, called the Dragon Slayer God. Krai didn't know the name and didn't care. He proudly declared his power was no less than anyone's, so why be afraid? This fighting spirit pleased Gark. He lightly patted his back, shattering Krai's protective ring. Krai then noticed the year's most important shopping event was happening, Zabrudia, a national auction held annually. It sold most valuable relics, and this year's were even better in quality. Krai was eager to hunt for bargains, but his wallet was empty. So he thought of borrowing from Sitri, though he hadn't paid off previous loans. While stressing about money, a beautiful girl approached him. She was Chloe, Gark's granddaughter, working the reception today. As they chatted, Sitri called to bring the Malice Eater to Krai's office. Its size had been reduced, looking like a cute cat. Crowley had misread its name as Drink, so Sitri decided to keep the name. Still, it wasn't a normal pet he could approach. A few tail wags shattered the protective rings on Krai's arm. He started feeling nervous, needing to recharge his relics urgently. Krai asked when Lucia Rosier would return. Learning she and other members were still busy with powerful phantoms, Sitri comforted him with a special ring, a relic that could hold a single spell. Lucia had also given Krai a similar necklace. He always treasured it. At this time, Nana and his team arrived. They were furious, feeling Chloe had disrespected them. One suggested showing off their power to intimidate. Nana crushed an apple in agreement. Meanwhile, Sitri was doting on Krai, taking every chance to rub her chest against him. But Krai showed no interest. He was most concerned about the many relics needing mana recharging. Without Lucia, it'd be hard to find a midge for this. Sitri quickly thought of a brilliant idea to help Krai soon. She gathered many guild members to announce an important training session for majors. Supposedly created by Krai, Krai was clueless why Sitri made this up. She even boasted that participants could become majors on par with Lucia. Lapis and Kitsu from Starlight showed interest, respecting Lucia greatly. Starlight was known as a team of Nobel damies. The Nobel tribe had long lifespans and top-tier magic skills. Saying Krai, Kitsu made rude remarks. Lapis reminded her to watch her mouth. After all, he was the guild master. Kitsu's attitude was typical of her tribe. They looked down on anyone not an outstanding midge. A girl named Marietta volunteered for Sidri's training, and her first task was charging a relic's mana. She succeeded but was exhausted. Sitri had her charge more. She grit her teeth, giving it her all until she fainted. Sitri calmly analyzed the situation, explaining a mage's strength is determined by total mana capacity. Using too much leads to depletion. Normally, adults can't increase their mana total, but Sitri had discovered a secret: when image recovers from depletion, their mana limit significantly increases. To prove it, she dripped a special solution into Marietta's mouth. She immediately jumped up, screamed, and collapsed again. Sitri confirmed her mana had increased. Repeating this would make her an outstanding midge. She claimed Lucia's success came from such grueling training. Using reverse psychology, she got the two Nobel girls to participate. They accepted and others followed. Through psychological manipulation, Sitri helped Krai without much effort. Elsewhere, Gark's handsome looks caught the attention of Lady Echo while discussing business. The next day, Krai and his girls went for a big drinking party. Sitri and Liz, those sisters, fought over Krai. Liz said she knew all of Sitri's secrets, mocking her golem as weak. They kept trading insults. Outwardly kind, inside Sitri was a vicious villain. She took the chance to poison Liz's drink. Krai handed them both drinks to make peace. Unluckily, Liz got the non-poisoned one. Sitri pretended to be drunk to avoid her cub and started groping Krai. Liz saw through it and slapped her. As the group was having fun, a loud noise drew attention. Nanha and his men had come to cause trouble. One of them knocked someone down and boasted about their power. Nana demanded wine and women. Liz stepped up, pretending to comply, then showed her fighting nature by pouring wine on his head and smashing a glass on him. The rest were easily defeated. Liz laughed, mocking their weak level 7 leader. After dealing with them, everyone went back to drinking, remembering 3 years ago. When Chloe first tried to join First Step, her opponent was the absolute godsword after failing. She gave up being a hunter to become a receptionist elsewhere. Eva reminded Krai about Nanha, who was no simpleton. He was famous for defeating a thunder dragon. Causing trouble now would create problems, so she suggested Gark mediate. Krai didn't care about making peace. He was more interested in thunder dragon meat. Sitri had once made it for him. They then discussed Krai's debt. Eva was shocked he owed Sitri 10 billion. To solve it, Sitri offered two options: go to prison to dodge the debt, which Krai refused, or marry her, making their assets shared and the debt disappear. Krai was conflicted but saw no other way. He told Eva he was ready to marry Sitri. Eva thought repaying wasn't that hard. His guild master salary was decent, and if he actually worked by hunting relics, he'd pay it off soon. She decided to make a spending plan to help Dot at the Frozen My base. Nanhi's group was furious. Deciding revenge was necessary. They marched to the Hunters Guild to cause trouble. Their noise drew Gark's attention. Instead of mediating, he poured fuel on the fire. Mocking them as too weak to face a level 8 hunter like Krai, he read a letter from Krai, asking them to catch some thunder dragons for meat. After reading it, he walked away arrogantly. Nanha, enraged, swore to deal with Krai. They analyzed Krai's power. He rarely participated in relic hunts. In the few battles he joined, he showed bizarre abilities. Nanha concluded he couldn't be level 8. There had to be a trick. He'd always relied on teammates to take credit. He was confident in victory. Back with Krai. He was on the balcony when Tino rushed to him. She happily said she was ready to fulfill any request. Krai mentioned his 10 billion debt, which made Tino's head spin. Seeing that, he said he wouldn't borrow money, so don't worry. He still had a way out: marry rich Sitri to clear the debt. This shocked Tino. She couldn't believe Sitri would go that far to monopolize him. They went for a walk. Tino suggested hunting relics to pay the debt. Krai was panicking. He wasn't stupid enough to walk into danger. Coincidentally, Nanha's group was nearby, glaring at him with murderous eyes. Krai was scared but tried to stay cool to avoid conflict, even willing to beg for peace. Tino refused to let her guild master bow. She was aggressive, completely opposite to Krai, cursing them as idiots and declaring Krai would defeat them. Krai just hid behind her, saying, "Dude, can we make peace?" Seeing diplomacy fail, Krai agreed to a duel, but only in broad daylight. Nanha didn't understand why but agreed. Krai's plan was to attract attention. Maybe someone from the guild would help. Nona declared he knew Krai's secret: his level didn't match his actual power. He'd risen by relying on teammates. Tino was furious. She asked Krai to let her fight the leader. He agreed without hesitation, saying he'd cheer from behind. Tino had no choice but to attack, but the power gap was huge. Nanha easily countered all her moves. He grabbed her head and slammed her to the ground. After knocking her out, he turned to Krai, cornered. Krai used the necklace Lucia gave him to counterattack. The spell was a wide-area gravity suppression, pinning everyone down. Krai called it Terra Order. Nanha was furious but helpless, forced to watch Krai carry Tino away. Krai then took her to eat to cheer her up, but she had no appetite. To make up for her failure, she eagerly wanted to know about high-value relics. Tino vowed to help Krai clear his 10 billion debt. Later, Krai met Chloe to discuss Nanha. Chloe noted his reactions were unlike anyone else's. Facing such a strong enemy, he kept provoking him. Crowley had no intention of making peace. He asked Chloe to tell Nana he wouldn't forget them. Then Chloe asked about the recruitment exam 3 years ago. She had failed miserably, but Krai had called her a promising candidate. Yet he had failed her at the last moment. She wanted to know what she lacked. Krai thought for a moment, then vaguely said she already had her answer. That was the past. She should focus on her current work. Chloe accepted and gave her full attention to her job. Nana approached Chloe to discuss the conflict with Krai, only to be humiliated again. He returned to base in rage, having lost face repeatedly. Despite his anger, he couldn't forget that gravity magic was extremely powerful. Krai wasn't just strong. He was a very difficult type of hunter. A subordinate brought intel on Krai. Indeed, everyone in First Step had been led around by him. They'd all experienced his bizarre way of speaking. Basically, in their eyes, his words shouldn't be taken seriously. In a fit of rage, the subordinate advised Nanha to calm down. An upcoming auction was their chance to get valuable gear. It would surely have things their empire lacked. Nanha agreed, deciding to put aside his grudge and focus on relic hunting. Meanwhile, Krai and Tino were appraising a newly hunted relic. The appraiser said it might be an outer relic, different from traditional relics, likely a product of a high-level magical civilization. A definitive answer would take more time, but unfortunately the auction was happening, so they'd have to wait. Krai focused on other valuable relics being appraised. While browsing, the appraiser chatted with Tino, saying she reminded him of his granddaughter, praising the First Step Guild. After all, Krai was the highest level hunter in recent years. Krai crowned a mask similar to his reverse face relic. Though creepy, reverse face was his favorite. Wearing it could completely change his appearance. He'd used it many times to roam freely without bodyguards. Sadly, Liz had broken the previous one. Just thinking about it felt amazing. He had to own this relic. He told the appraiser his wish, hoping to trade directly with the owner. The appraiser found it strange, as it hadn't even been appraised yet, but agreed to mediate. Krai pondered his next steps. Reverse space could be used illegally, so it wasn't publicly sold. Also, buying it privately might be cheaper. The deal was too tempting to miss. Tino reminded him of his huge debt. Plus, Sitri's research investments left her with little spare cash. Krai was stressed, wishing there was someone else to borrow from. Just then his benefactor appeared. Gark had returned to First Step, bringing Lady Eccles to visit. Eccles openly said she hated hunters, but handsome Gark was an exception. Seeing Krai and Tino, she showed contempt and said harsh words. Krai humbly smiled, ignoring her insults. His clever reaction made Eccles lose interest, and she left. Meeting his comrade, Krai happily asked to borrow money, but was immediately refused. Still, Kravi didn't give up, emphasizing how much he needed that relic. After exhausting his pleas, he went to ask others in the guild. His determination made everyone curious about what relic was so important. Later, Krai went to the only one who could help. Sitri happily said she'd pause her research to lend her future husband money. If he wanted a relic that badly, she'd support him. She even offered to be his negotiator. Krai thanked her joyfully, hoping the owner would accept 30 million. Surprisingly, the seller was Nona and his accomplice. A few days after fighting, they were now negotiating. Sitri played her role well, trying to manipulate the opponent into paying the least. Nana didn't even know the mask's true function. He demanded Krai clarify, but Krai refused to give accurate info, only vaguely saying it was dangerous and even restricted by law. Nana thought Krai was terrible at negotiating, but thinking deeper, he suspected Krai was scheming to trap him. Maybe he was using reverse psychology to make him want to keep this dangerous item. So, arrogantly thinking he'd seen through the plot, he offered to trade for a cheap 10 million. Nana never expected his overthinking to backfire, while Krai had no plan at all. Krai immediately agreed. Thinking the deal was done, a crowd arrived to bid. Everyone thought the mask must be valuable for the ever-changing to want it. They kept bidding higher. Suddenly, Ekel appeared, declaring she'd own it. Later, Krai expressed his frustration to Eva. Everything had gone wrong. He thought he'd get it cheap, but it slipped away. Just as he was depressed, Sitri brought good news, saying she had a huge savings to fight the lady. This money was meant for their wedding, but using it now was fine. Ekel was equally determined. She was furious with Krai and vowed to do everything to get the relic, proudly claiming she wouldn't lose to a commoner. As a noble, she couldn't let her favorite item slip away. Sitri calmly analyzed that Ekel's budget was limited to 100 million, while she had to 100 million. If Ekel couldn't prepare more, the result was clear. Ekel sadly went to her father for more auction money, potentially over 1 billion. No matter the opponent, they had to win to save face. On auction day, Ekel was disappointed her total was exactly 950 million. Sitri estimated their chance of winning was 70%. Liz suggested a backup plan. If they lost, she'd steal it for him. Despite the sisters' agreement, Crowley wasn't enthusiastic. He was ready to accept defeat. If he got more dead, Eva would be furious. The auction attracted a huge crowd. Tino and other guild members came to watch. Krai felt it wasn't right for him to appear, so he had Tino bid for him. His main rival, Lady Ekel, had arrived. Many interesting relics were on display. Krai wanted to buy them but was broke. So many good relics missed. He was going crazy because he had to save money for the mask. The shopping urge overwhelmed him, so he decided to use his ace to win the remaining relics. Coincidentally, the next item was the giant Akasa golem confiscated by the Hunters Guild. Krai remembered this was what Sitri wanted. Starting bid, 30 million. The price skyrocketed, making their eyes pop. To Sitri, this golem was not only functional but also a memento of her hard work. Though she wanted it badly, she was willing to sacrifice for Krai, just as she was sad. Krai encouraged her by bidding. The price reached over 300 million, worrying Sitri. She feared if he won, they'd have no money for the mask. She even advised him to stop. The golem wasn't worth it. Krai acted understanding and kind. He couldn't bear to see the golem fall into someone else's hands. He revealed he'd saved a large sum for it, so she shouldn't worry about money. The final price was 1,060 million, 110 million over series budget. Krai then pulled out his ace, a banknote for 110 million. Sitri was moved, promising to pay him back. The money was actually borrowed from Lucia. So Krai's get grew. After winning the golem, Krai was broke. He left before the mask was even offered. But he wasn't giving up that easily. Back at the guild, he personally went to Gark with a proposal. He explained the mask was dangerous, though he couldn't elaborate, hoping Gark would understand. He had a plan to own it without spending much. Echo would surely give it to Gark as a gift, so he just needed to convince Gark to sell it back at a friendly price. If he said it was dangerous, Gark would believe him. At the auction, Echo won reverse face for 200 million. But the Countess wasn't happy like her daughter. Krai had left early. The Count felt their victory was hollow. Echo, learning from her father, felt foolish for spending 200 million on a creepy mask with unknown functions. Just as she was depressed, a voice spoke from the mask. It said it had witnessed her negative emotions, making her a perfect candidate to receive its power. It called itself a giver of hope to fragile bodies. Any weakling wanting power could summon it. Echo panicked, remembering Krai's warning that the mask was dangerous. His casual statement turned out accurate. Meanwhile, outside, the Count was hosting Gark and his team. Because Krai had warned them, they wore armor and weapons to meet Echo. A loud noise drew their attention. They rushed in to see what happened. Krai's warning came true. Echo, possessed by the mask, went berserk, destroying the house and knocking out guards. Seeing more people, she raged, her body emitting dark mana, boosting her speed and strength. Gark calmly approached to negotiate. Echo regained some control, excitedly saying she'd gotten the strongest relic for him. Gark was happy, asking her to remove the mask first. But it wasn't that easy. Echo's dark power surged, threatening everyone. She grabbed a sword and attacked Gark. He countered with a light sword. The two forces collided. Meanwhile, Nani's group was celebrating their 200 million. Liz arrived to cause trouble. Sitri said she was there to ask for 100 million. For persuasion, she showed a bottle of antidote. Their victory beers had been poisoned. If they paid, they'd live. Nona was furious but had to negotiate. Later, Gark's team returned victorious and Krai hosted a small celebration. Gark gave Krai the mask, warning it was truly dangerous. Krai examined it closely, still thinking it was a redesigned reverse face. Echo came with Gark to apologize. Everyone was shocked when Krai put it on, but nothing bad happened. The strange mask confirmed Krai was a useless subject. All his stats were negative and his fighting will was 0, so it couldn't activate combat mode. Disappointed, it fell off. Though not reverse face, Krai was still interested and thanked Echo, inviting her to a small party. Remembering Tina's past as a kind girl, the baker praised her skills. At 11, she could do many things but warned her about bad hunters nearby. On her way home, she ran into them. Scared, she ran but was caught. They planned to sell children. Just then, Krai passed by and dropped their sleeping potion. Other Grieving Souls members appeared. Their new masks were a bit clumsy, but even knowing they were famous rookies, the thugs didn't care. One was taken down instantly, the other quickly followed. Krai still didn't understand what was happening. The two cruel hunters ran, swearing revenge. After the danger passed, Liz asked if Tino was hurt or lost anything. Grieving Souls was now famous for breaking rules. Tino remembered losing her brooch. Krai said they'd handle it and send her home. For Liz, it was simple: report to the Hunters Guild since the two were hunters. Gark asked if they remembered the culprits' details and why they weren't brought in. Krai explained they weren't sure they were bad as they only took a brooch. Also, they wore masks with no eye holes, making identification impossible. Gark sighed. With no info, there was nothing to do. He'd pass it to the knights. Krai asked if they'd seek revenge. Gark laughed, saying if they came, he'd take responsibility. Grieving Souls was reckless because they had backing. Ansem Smart liked their style, calling them an King with leadership potential. The two who got beaten by Grieving Souls, punished by their superiors, plotted revenge. The big one suggested recruiting them instead. The thin one agreed. Tino was still telling her story to guild members. Krai remembered when they'd been invited to a mysterious organization. Since Grieving Souls was famous for being unruly, a big misunderstanding occurred. The thugs thought they were also child traffickers and asked about the goods. Krai thought they meant the monster they'd hunted and said they dealt with it. The thugs were shocked by their ruthlessness. They led the team to the trafficking base, full of stench and suspicion, but Krai remained calm. Lucia recognized the thugs' voices but wanted to see how her brother would handle it. The crime boss wanted a contract with Grieving Souls, offering high pay to not interfere. Krai hesitated, so they showed him their goods: kidnapped children. Despite strict monitoring, they had ways to smuggle them out, aiming to become a huge trafficking organization. Krai asked what if they refused. Luke was shot in the head, but the redhead was unharmed and chopped off the two thugs' hands. Boasting their masks were special Krai-made gear, too thick for bullets. With Gark's backing, they could slaughter the bad guys. Lucia and Liz easily broke necks. Bullets were blocked by Luke's wooden sword. Ansem shielded the children and even threw homemade bombs. In seconds, grieving souls wiped out the gang. Krai found Tino's brooch and returned it. The next day, news of the trafficking ring's destruction hit the headlines. The children returned home safely. Called to the Hunters Guild, the team thought they'd be fine since they'd done good. Young Tino came to take statements and Krai returned her brooch, making her cry with joy. They took a commemorative photo which Tino kept carefully. Today was the 5th anniversary of grieving souls rescuing her, so she shared the story again. A few days later, Krai was taken to a relic they'd explored. Tino had found a suspicious hole, thinking treasure might be below. Observing closely, there was nothing unusual. Krai apologized to Sitri for wasting her time. She smiled, saying it was a sand rabbit habitat, so she still needed to follow for protection. Even if they were the weakest monsters, Tino jumped in to check. Sitri revealed the hole was dug by the golden crow he won an auction. Below was another Akasa base, with the entrance disguised as a sand rabbit nest. Since they were here, they might as well check. But then, strange sounds came from nearby. They thought it was a monster, but it was a human. He introduced himself as Aleko, the rabbit scholar, from a secret society studying sand rabbit behavior. He boasted they discovered something shocking. Meanwhile, Tino was digging enthusiastically, unaware of danger behind her. The discovery was a giant sand rabbit cave. It was hard to believe such small rabbits could build such a huge nest. They believed these rabbits had superior intelligence, building an underground civilization. Sitri yawned, knowing it was an Akasa hideout. To celebrate, Aleko wanted to roast rabbit, but they declined. Returning to the surface, they heard a scream. Tino was being chased by a giant sand rabbit. Aleko excitedly called it the legendary Rabbit King and wanted to catch it. Krai wondered why a rabbit was so big and Sitri explained it was a monster back at the guild. Krai received many letters and asked Eva to reply, telling her to just refuse them all. She was speechless. He always sat around acting busy. The model toys on his chest were interesting. The ring Tino had found was a relic creating illusions within 120 centimeters. Krai teased Eva by making a giant face, scaring her. Meanwhile, at the Akasa secret base, Liz and Sitri interrogated criminals. Despite all tricks, they got nothing, suspecting they were Red Hunter smugglers. Secretly controlling the research institute, Liz asked what to do with them since Sitri needed research materials. If not, she turned them into punching bags. According to her sister, their future was darker than anything. Tino was comforted for running into a giant sand rabbit. Feeling sorry, Krai wanted to give her a relic as thanks for the illusion ring. When the two sisters returned, they agreed, since she was still weak. Tino hesitated, fearing reliance on relics, but Liz scolded her. Getting chased by a sand rabbit and talking like that? Tino cried, not expecting Sitri to tell her master everything. Seeing that, Krai thought of giving her a strength-enhancing item. But no one expected him to pull out the cursed mask. The sisters were interested, but Tino was horrified. Krai insisted it was effective, even a weak lady could match Gark with it. Tino struggled but was forced to wear it. Immediately, she grabbed Krai and yelled at the two sisters, calling Lid the Shorty and Sitri Viper. The sisters were furious, not expecting her to think of them that way. The next morning, Gark summoned Krai to personally assign a quest. It was from the lady family, who notoriously hated hunters. Though dangerous, the reward was generous. Krai suggested Gark do it and got cursed out. If he didn't complete at least one quest in 3 months, he'd be kicked out. And he'd even given credit away last time. No level 8 had ever been expelled for failing targets. This was his last chance, so Gark decided to send his granddaughter along. Krai said he needed time to prepare. On the way back, he met a strange pair. They wanted to talk and dragged him to a restaurant, though Krai didn't know them. The blue-haired one asked him to withdraw from this case. After the Akasa incident, Krai was close to level 9, but Akasa was their prey. Eliminating the remnants was seen as unethical among hunter guilds. Krai just laughed, not understanding. Mary told Aaron not to speak harshly, but he insisted no one could outsmart the ever-changing. So get to the point. The top team's growth was too fast, but Krai's experience lagged behind other level 8s. Reaching level 9 too early could cause problems. Though confused, Krai agreed to withdraw, saying he had no interest. He vaguely guessed Luke, Liz, and Sitri were up to something. Just then, Nani's team came to cause trouble. Krai pretended not to know them, making Nana furious. If they wanted a fight, take down all of First Step first. Annoyed, Aaron told them to leave his guest alone. They declared they were from Hidden CS, led by the strongest level 800 in the capital. Diabus Fire, seeing trouble, Krai excused himself to escape. Getting involved with that old lady would destroy his guild. He used a relic to transform into Gark and ran through the streets. Everyone was shocked. Did Gark have a twin? Back at the guild, Eva happily announced a letter inviting them to the Swords Gathering, a conference hosted by the Emperor. Though they'd been ignored before due to Krai's troublemaking friends, recent events had caught the Emperor's attention. Krai cursed his bad luck and excused himself for a vacation, saying he'd attend if he made it back. Liz and Sitri eagerly agreed. Luke's place at End Palace was chosen. The Akasa investigation was left to Hidden CS. Tino, Kitsu, and the drink were also allowed. Liz asked if anyone wanted a vacation with the guild master. Everyone made excuses, from stomachaches to grandmother's weddings. Tino was hiding in her room. Liz barged in, threatening to throw her out. Sitri brought 3 new slaves to serve. They were told to greet the guild master but stayed silent, so they got electrocuted. They obediently introduced themselves as white, black, and gray. Liz dragged Tino in, who begged to stay, knowing this vacation would be dangerous. Nani's group learned Krai was leaving the capital. At the Hunters Guild branch, Gark told his granddaughter to chase him with the quest papers. 2 level 4s went along and ran into Nani's group. At home, they'd heard Hidden CS had declared war on Akasa's remnants. Everyone cursed Krai for tricking them into this mess. After a day's travel, Krai's group stopped to rest. Tino was forced to play tag with Liz or do 1,000 push-ups. She asked for a toy to boost her movement. Krai offered the cursed mask, but she ran away, terrified, and got electrocuted unconscious. Sitri assured it was fine. Krai was speechless. This vacation was dangerous. He ordered the girls not to train during this time, banning exercise and potion making. They should enjoy themselves, not strain their necks. Sitri thought he was preparing them for extended battles. Krai was speechless. Meanwhile, the 2 chasing carriages were approaching. Chloe was lucky to be with Nani's group as the road was full of monsters. They boasted about defeating thunder dragons. According to Chloe, Krai was in Iran. To reach Gladi territory, they'd have to pass through Iran. Nona thought Krai would pay dearly on the other side. Sitri had brought Krai to a safe house with supplies and cut all connections. The monsters were left to the 3 slaves. Liz found a secret room full of Sitri's potions, including sedatives and stimulants, plus strange underwear. They were having fun when the sky turned abnormal. Lightning struck continuously. Tino knew from experience that every trip with Krai meant trouble. Though he said it wasn't life-threatening, she was still worried. Suddenly, a giant lightning bolt struck, setting the area on fire. The city sent alarms, but Krai thought it was natural and ignored it. Liz asked if they should check, but Krai refused. Staying put was safest. He figured if there was trouble, the knights could handle it. The lightning was actually caused by Sitri's earlier thunder summoning potion. Nani's group arrived. A soldier warned them to leave to avoid lightning, pointing to a flying object called a thunder star. No one knew why it was here. but it was stronger than the Thunder Dragon. Nanha suspected Krai's group was behind it. He told Chloe to stay back, sure Krai would appear. But the others objected. They were hunters, they couldn't run. Meanwhile, Crowley was relaxing, ignoring the outside. The battle grew fierce as the level 4 hunters were helpless against the Thunder Star still. Nanhi's team trusted their leader. He decided to ride in and slash the lightning source. The next morning, Krai's group saw only destruction. Liz was eager to fight but was forbidden. Thanks to high-level hunters, only property was damaged. Nanha learned Krai had left while he rested, even leaving a compliment thanks to them. He'd had a good night's sleep. Nanha was so furious he punched a stone table. All that effort and the guy just slept. He thought the ever-changing had predicted their plan and ignored it. Meanwhile, the two sisters fought over sitting next to Krai. Sitri said genetically, her sister wasn't compatible with men. The other retorted they were no different, being sisters. Sitri also tried to lure monsters for Liz to fight so she could be with Krai. Krai intervened to stop the argument, even throwing the dangerous potion away. Tino wondered why they were going to a garage. She was told there were delicious sweets there. Krai was trying to overcome his fear of sweets and wanted to try Pathet. Liz hated sweets, so only the pink-haired sister joined. Tino panicked, thinking Pathet was a coda name for a terrifying monster. The monster summoning potion thrown away had started working. By afternoon, Krai's group entered the city, packed with hunters. Sitri learned a flock of vultures was gathering nearby. If they attacked, it'd be dangerous, so they were calling reinforcements. Hearing about monsters excited Liz. Tino realized Pathet was probably those dangerous vultures. So coming here must be for fighting. Krai cut off her thoughts, saying they'd go eat chocolate Pathet tomorrow. The other two didn't like sweets, so they encouraged Tino to go. But their eyes were full of jealousy. That night, hearing the vultures howl, Krai felt inspired. The two super monsters immediately rushed to slaughter them. The vultures were about to attack the city but got ambushed. The drink and the high-level chimera made mincemeat of them. Seeing the brutality, the leader tried to retreat. Meanwhile, the instigator was home relaxing. Tino still thought the guildmaster was about to make her fight. Just then, Nanhi's group arrived. They found the monster summoning potion and thought it was useless. But the 7 vultures ran towards them, scared by Sitri's monsters. Nanha, seeing the wounded, ordered caution. The monster's eyes turned red, signaling trouble. Krai, meanwhile, was eating ice cream at home. He asked his sister what was wrong when she kept muttering at night. Liz snuck into Krai's room as usual. Her sister also appeared in a revealing outfit, demanding not to be left out. Liz wondered how she got in while bathing, but she'd been watching Krai. Krai ignored them and went to sleep, planning to eat sweets tomorrow. On the other side, a fire star appeared, burning the monsters. It was even stronger than the Thunder Star. Nanha was furious, thinking he was being played. The next morning, Krai took Tino to the restaurant. She nervously scanned for vultures. Krai praised her performance and training with Liz. Surprisingly, she really liked her master despite the beatings. Sitri sometimes crossed the line but wasn't abusive. Only the guildmaster was cruel, always putting her in danger. Tino asked when the monsters would appear. Before Krai could answer, others in the restaurant said the monsters had been driven off. Tino realized she'd been foolish not to trust him. The monster-slaying heroes were being cheered. They were battered but alive. Nanha was still bitter, only chasing the ever-changing and running into thunder and fire stars. Krai's group happened to pass by. Seeing Nanha, Krai whispered to Liz to escape, but she didn't listen. She jumped up, taunting them, "Tough fight? Even with just vultures, you did well for country folks." Seeing Nanhi's rage, Krai quickly pulled the group away. Nanhi's team was mobbed by city girls and couldn't follow. Sitri calculated they couldn't catch up, so it was fine. Krai decided to change course for safety. The two sisters seemed happy while Tino cried, knowing that area was a monster nest. On the way, Sitri's pets kept killing anything in their path. Rumors said a monster called Dragot lived here. Almost no info existed because few survived encounters. Krai was worried as the three slaves were screaming. Liz wanted to fight but was restricted. Krai gave permission as long as it was a monster. Liz happily dragged Tino along. Krai offered the cursed mask, terrifying Tino, who ran out, leaving the others stunned. After a night of fighting, things were now like this. Aheadward to Rhodes. The clearly marked one was obviously a trap, filled with monsters. Krai chose it because it looked easier. Nanhi's team also entered this dangerous path. Having faced constant trouble, Chloe thought this was a series of tests. Krai always trained first step members harshly. The guys who went with Tina last time nearly died by evening. Krai was excited not to have seen any monsters. If things went smoothly, they could cross the mountain today, but since it was a vacation, they decided to camp. Remembering old times, Krai went with Liz to get water. Her sister was jealous she couldn't be near him. In the water, Liz quickly speared a giant fish for dinner. Krai helped brush her hair, making her happy. She'd loved him since childhood and leaned in to kiss him. But a big explosion on the other side made them rush back. Kitsu attacked, but the enemy was too strong, blocking with one hand. Tino tried to sneak attack but failed. Liz arrived in time to save them. The creature was Dragot. The reason no other monsters were here was that this was its territory. The beautiful road was a trap. It threw a giant boulder at Krai, but Liz caught it one-handed. Furious that attacked her future husband, she kicked it far away, leaving a scorch mark. Sitri said the spirit had high regeneration, making physical attacks useless. If Ansem and Luciard were here, they could handle it. In this situation, they had to retreat. The monster quickly healed. Liz also noticed the challenge to catch it. Though the right path was safer, she couldn't swallow her pride. Dragot was still chasing, hiding too well to locate. Sitri knew it liked to toy with its prey before killing. The best strategy was to use multiple baits to slow it. Tino panicked. Would they use themselves as sacrifices? Or worse, the three unlucky slaves. The alternative was using special potions to lure other monsters, distracting Dragot. But it was risky, with a 50-50 chance of being attacked. Krai calmly smiled, saying go for it, terrifying Tino. They were attacked but escaped thanks to Liz's power. Tino cried because the guild master was always reckless. Krai offered the mask again, saying she should keep it to boost her fighting power. Just then, Drink got angry with the three unfortunate ones. One had to fetch water for the group. Returning, he found the collar key in Krai's hand. Dragot watched from above. Seeing Nanhi's group nearby, it admired Liz and Nanha, a strong opponent. Dragot used a technique to lure the big guy in the group. Its plan was to make the two strong ones fight while it reaped the benefits. Seeing Nanhi's group approaching, Liz just smiled, thinking they were too easily provoked. Then the spirit transformed into Nanha, surprising Krai. It didn't look much like him. But when it said it was Nanha, Krai believed it and asked why he'd lost weight, leaving his friends speechless. As for the sword, the monster said it threw it away because it was weak. Seeing its hatred, Krai confirmed it was Nanha. He quickly apologized, saying everything wasn't on purpose, it was intentional. The monster was furious, so he bowed and begged it not to be so angry. This coincidentally reached the real Nanha, who got cursed out, thinking Krai was insulting him. Furious, he attacked but was pushed back. The monster tried to flee, but its plan was exposed. Blocked by the two pink-haired sisters, it transformed back and Krai realized they'd been tricked. Nana said, "Only you got tricked." Tino wanted to fight but was outclassed. When Nanha swung, Krai shielded her. Pushed back again, Nana demanded Krai fat. The guild master didn't fight because he always trusted his teammates. This motivated Tino, who charged in. Knowing she couldn't win, she used the mask. This time, she controlled it, saying the mask was a tool, not her master. Her new power was enough to match level 7. Still, she got beaten. Waking up the next morning, Crowley told her her body wasn't used to the new state. Drake was defeated by the two pink-haired sisters. Since it kept regenerating, they pushed it to Nanhi's group. So it'd take them a long time to follow. Tino apologized for being useless. Krai praised her for getting stronger. Not everyone wins all the time. Liz had lost many times to get this strong. Tino promised to try harder, hoping to join Grieving Souls, and Krai agreed. She asked if Krai had ever lost Noob Dawn on the other side. Dragos was finally defeated. Chloe realized everyone was getting stronger chasing Krai. Not his team had also achieved many feats, making her believe these were tests set by the ever-changing. For the next location, Chloe knew where Krai's group was heading and guided Nonha. Arriving at Luke's castle, he wasn't there. Krai decided to go to a hot spring instead. Nonahi's group didn't know. Entering this place, everyone was scared as it was a relic once conquered by the strongest team. Hot Crow was inside, so he charged in, not realizing he'd entered a level 8 relic.